Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CS program Huddle. So as some of you may have already seen in the chat panel, we are just getting started now. But feel free to submit all your questions to the Q&A panel. So today's event will be involving our two panelists, so Margaret Fox and Howda Fan. They'll be introducing themselves in a minute. Just before we do, feel free to send your Q&As into the panels on the right. And there's also a chat section, and I believe you can chat with other people within this event as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Margaret Fox to introduce herself, tell us about her program and what year she's in, and a fun fact that she might have.
All right. Hi, I'm Margaret. I'm in my third year of CS. And fun fact about myself is I'm president of the UW Cooking Club.
Awesome. And next up, we'll have Howda Fan introduce himself, doing the same thing, name, what year and program, and a fun fact.
Hello, everybody. I'm Howda Fan. I am in fourth year. I'm also in computer science, although I am trying to do a minor in history. I don't know. Fun fact about myself is I like to draw stick figures, and I post them on the subreddit for Waterloo.
Awesome. So I think we'll kick out right to our very first question. In which ways will our CS courses be held in the fall term? Do either of you know the answer to that one? And if not, I can take that
I
one.
believe this is your specialty, Thomas.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, as everyone knows, this term we have obviously almost all courses are online. And so what that means is for each course is going to be a little different, and you're going to be hearing specifically from each of your profs on the very first day of classes. So in some cases, it'll be recorded videos. Other cases might be another form that your professor has decided, but it's completely up to the professor to decide on what the best method of kind of giving the classes or how to instruct those classes. So it'll be kind of a case by case. You'll be seeing the details on this coming Tuesday on the 8th. So make sure to check your emails and Monitor Learn and all those kind of academic places. Next question we've got, how do you decide which field you want to explore more? There are many. Oh, the questions are jumping around. Okay, hold up.
I can read it.
Perfect. Yeah,
how do you decide which field you want to explore more? There are many things in comp sci you can indulge into, like machine learning, AI being very popular. How would you know where your interest lies? Do we have the time to test them and explore? I could answer this one. So there are a lot of things in computer science, and okay, so in your computer science degree, you have a lot of like specializations that you can choose from, and these specializations do have their own kind of unique set of requirements. Like for example, I actually don't have an example, but like they have like certain courses that you have to take. Um, but I would say though that these specializations aren't like super important. You shouldn't really have to worry about, oh, if I don't know which specialization to choose, so I don't know how to tailor like my courses to do like whichever one of them, because like in reality, like your specialization is just kind of like an extra set of words attached to your degree. It won't affect things that much. So like my advice would be to just pick out courses that seem interesting and take them. And you'll be given a lot of choice in courses in your third and fourth year as computer science students. Basically, for your first like 2.5 semesters, or not semesters, 2.5 years in computer science, you're kind of like you're kind of told like, okay, you have to take this CS course and you have to take this CS course and you have to take that CS course. But as soon as you hit your 3B term, like this entire world opens up where you have like a billion choices as to what to take. And my advice would be to just try some out. Whichever ones interest you, you can just take ML, you can just take AI. And I think that if you really, really, really like sort of the courses you made, you can see if you can add that specialization onto your degree. That is, yeah, that's my answer.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Our next question is a pretty general campus one, is where are the best places on campus to study?
I guess I can answer this. I personally study in DP the most because there's the most study spaces. I will admit that it is not the nicest building, but for me, my priority is finding a space to be able to study. I know a lot of my friends like to study in like QNC or E7, because those buildings are a lot nicer, but they're also usually more full. So if you get to campus early, you can get those spots. Yeah.
Perfect. Also, just for people who don't know, DP stands for Dana Porter, E7 is Engineering 7, and QNC is Quantum Nano Center. So at Waterloo, we very much like our abbreviations. You'll very quickly pick up on them. But yeah, all of our buildings have some short form because we're apparently too lazy to say the full word. Perfect. Our next
I'd also
question.
like to add.
Yeah, go for it, for sure.
So in MC, which is the math and computing building, it's the big blocky gray one. There are computer labs. So if you don't have like a particularly good computer at home, when COVID-19 is done for, you could go into the computer labs and use the Macs or the Windows PCs there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very helpful to know. Our next question is how to not fail in a midterm. What are your suggestions to not fail in a midterm? I can try to take a stab at this. Yeah, it's a tough one to answer.
I mean, there's all the basic things you can do, which is like do your homework, do your assignments, do the practice midterms. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you could also look at past midterms. If your friends who are in upper years have already done them before, you can look at their past midterms. Um, I don't know. I think the best way to not fail your midterms is to try your best to stay on top of things. Most of your midterms for like math will be just essentially the same as your assignments. CS might be a little bit different. So CS you kind of have to um, do a bit more studying, like of the lectures and stuff. Yeah.
For sure. I'll throw on top of that is MathSoc on their website, they actually have the previous exam banks. So you can actually pull up old exams. Typically they're final exams if I remember correctly, but typically you can kind of pick out questions from those old exams that you can also practice on. So check out the MathSoc website. There's a place that you can go grab those old exams. Perfect. Our next question is, will lab sessions be asynchronous? So I can take this one because it's a bit more of a technical question. Yeah, so most of your course content this term will be asynchronous. Full details though will be course by course. It's gonna just come down to what your professor has decided on. So I can't give you a distinct saying it'll all be asynchronous or it will all be synchronous. It's going to come down to what your professor has decided. So wait till Tuesday to get the full details of what that's going to look like this term for you. Let's get to our next question. Can you give a brief overview of CS co-ops in terms of where we get placements and how do we do, what do we do while we intern?
Okay, I can answer this one. Um, So you should get most of your placements at Waterloo Works, if that's what the question was asking. Waterloo Works is kind of the Waterloo co-op system that you'll be introduced to in the term before your first co-op. So for some of you, that will be winter term. I think for most of you, that will be winter term. For some of you, that would be summer term if you're in sequence 4 or 3, I think. What's the second part of the question?
Where we get placements and what do we do while we intern?
Oh, so what you do while you intern largely depends on where you're interning. I would say I can roughly divide companies into 2 categories. One is they'll throw you onto an existing development team and you just kind of work with them. And typically what that's like is you get a set of like tickets or issues, and you kind of get to choose between which one you want to work on. You'll usually be given either a mentor or like a coworker that you can like ask questions if you ever get stuck on something, and you essentially just work kind of as part of the team, like almost as if you're a full timer. The second kind of category I would divide internships into is like projects. So this is more common with large companies, which is you're kind of like an intern there, and they'll just give you like a project to do. Like, oh, we want you to make a prototype of whatever application, and you just kind of work on that yourself. Yeah, that's essentially what co-op is like. I don't know if there's any other types of co-op you can get.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Another, actually, one thing I do want to say about that one is just for terminology. So technically co-ops aren't a placement, because technically a placement comes down to like you're being placed into a position, but you're very much applying to jobs as you would as like a normal person applying for any jobs. So it is definitely competitive, but so you get to kind of choose and figure out what you want to intern into. So you choose the jobs you apply to in order to kind of get your co-op experience. So you can kind of dictate what you're going to be doing in your internship by reading like the job descriptions and all of that. Our next question is how many hours a week are spent doing schoolwork, attending lectures, etc.?
This is also a bit of a hard question. I think
Sure.
this is dependent on the kind of person you are. Um, and I think this is something you'll typically have to figure out yourself in your first term. I would say err on the side of caution for the first semester. Like, try to set aside maybe more time than you think you might need. But yeah, this is completely person dependent. I think that personally, for my math courses, I spent around 2 afternoons/evenings to finish each weekly assignment. For Math 135, for Math 137, that's usually 1 afternoon or slash evening. Computer science really varies because it's debugging, right? It's terrible. Sometimes like your computer science assignment's super easy. Other times like you have this error that it takes you 3 hours to figure out what the problem is. So I think this is I don't know. I think it's largely dependent on yourself.
I would agree. Perfect. What websites do you recommend for coding challenges/practice?
I guess like the most common one is LeetCode, and it is a very good website, and we do have a lot of problems. That's the one I mostly use, and then I sometimes read like other books like Cracking the Coding Interview or Programming Interviews Exposed. I think those are also good resources.
For sure. Let's find our next question. We got a lot of them. How tough is it to get into a co-op as a first-year CS student who didn't have prior high school programming knowledge? Do either one you want to take that one?
I can take that one. I can answer. So I guess it's very dependent on what your goals are. I think if you just want a job, it's not actually that hard. Um, Maybe with COVID-19 and everything that in the recession, it's more difficult. But I think that most first year CS students are able to get some kind of job, at least a little bit related to their degree. Maybe it's not like software development, and maybe it's QA. But I think that it's not like super duper hard. If you want to get like a good job, like maybe at like a company that you really like, or um, yeah, like just at a company you really like, that is pretty hard to do as a first year student. And I would not expect any first year student to get it, even though there's always like a couple who somehow manage to get like the biggest company ever. But those are very much the exception, not the rule. So I would say it's easy to get a job. It's hard to get the job you want.
Perfect. Does CS 135 assume that we have already prior CS knowledge?
No.
Yep, nice and simple answer. No, there's no previous experience. Yeah, everyone is expected to come in with nothing, and so everyone's on an even playing field. 135 is done in Racket, which I feel like almost no one has ever programmed in before, usually coming in, and so very much so it becomes a very even playing ground, even for people who have programmed, and so you definitely all get to learn together in that situation. Are there any specific languages we should know before going into computer science?
No.
No.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Is the life of a CS student as busy and cramped as it sounds, or do we have time to take breaks and participate in extracurricular activities?
I would say that it's it seems kind of exaggerated how busy it is. Like I definitely think that if there's some extracurricular that you're really passionate about or you really care about, you can make time for it. And it does you do need to learn how to balance your time and um, make sure that you're doing everything that you need to do and get enough sleep and be healthy. But it's 100% possible.
Awesome. Here's a question, and I don't know if you guys will have an answer for it, but why are we learning Racket for the first term, even though we probably won't use it later?
I can answer this. So the main purpose behind learning. Okay, so in Waterloo computer science, we don't generally teach you languages. That's not something that the program teaches you. The program or the courses that you'll take will generally teach you a concept. So in CS 135, the concept that they're trying to teach you is functional programming. You want to learn how to program using functions. You want to learn how to do things like, oh, what is a lambda function? Those kinds of things. Um, and a lot of these things are not language specific, but Racket is a language that only uses functions. Well, at least the version of Racket you'll be working with. So that in and of itself will help you think the way that you should as a functional programmer. It is also worth noting that as computer scientists, you'll be doing a lot of learning, and you will not be like kind of limited to one or two languages. Like every computer scientist, every programmer should like know like a variety of languages, and they should be good at learning new languages. So another way to help with that is to learn a language, right? Like learn Racket, man, do it. Yeah, that's my answer to that. Also, Racket is pretty nice. Like, like it's not terrible. Like, it's different, but it's a pretty okay language, I think.
As long as you like brackets. Why were you learn? Nope, that's the question we just answered. Is it possible to do co-ops in other countries outside of North America?
Yes,
wanna take that?
assuming that country will let you in.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
it's a
So
little hard to answer this now because of because of the pandemic, but it was certainly possible before.
for sure. What was your first relatively quote big side project in university?
Big side project.
Um, for me personally, I didn't have any big side projects. It was just like in first year when I was looking for my first co-op, I just made a bunch of small games in Unity because I thought it was fun. But none of them were that big.
Yeah, I would say that it's not actually like I think the most important part about side projects is that you do it. I think the actual project itself and the scope of the project is not actually that important. Yeah, if you have like this big, amazing side project, that helps, but you don't need it. Personally, I don't think I've made like a particularly big side project before. Um, I think the biggest side project I made was an AI for StarCraft in this StarCraft AI competition that I got last place in. um, and my AI did like the most dumb basic strategy, and it only did that. Like it did a bunker rush for those who play StarCraft. But I don't know play StarCraft anymore. But yeah, like I don't know. I don't think it matters that much. I think
Yeah,
you should just find something that you're interested in and make a project.
for sure. This one I will quickly just answer. When will we receive our schedules? So our schedules are actually technically already available on Quest. So if you log in and you see the I think it's like called course schedule button, you just click on that and it'll give you kind of like the overview of all the courses you're in. Now, since everything is online this term, we don't have any specific time blocks for the courses that you would normally see in like a calendar view. So you'll be building your schedule yourself once you determine kind of like how each course is being offered in the first day of classes. So this terms is very much a very flexible schedule, and you will probably get to choose kind of like how you slot everything around, since it might be kind of asynchronous learning in some situations. So yeah, it's pretty flexible this term. Um, Here is an opinion question. How hard are the 140s? Did either of you take the 140s?
I did not.
I did not either, but I will briefly talk about this if you guys don't have anything to say about it. So for the 140s, from the friends that I have talked to who have taken it, I mean, first of all, it's hard to quantify hard. In some cases, hard for some people are completely different for someone else. The general gist I got from the 140s from my friends was that it's just a very fast moving course. So you are constantly learning. Every single lecture is like jam packed to the extreme. And it just means you just need to have really good time management typically to kind of stay on top of it. Because once you fall behind in the 140s, typically it becomes hard to catch up just because by that time you're already moving on to like completely different things. So if you're really good at time management, you probably might not even find it hard at all. While if you kind of notice that things are starting to slip, it might become more and more difficult as the term goes along. So it's going to come down to how you handle the course potentially. So it's kind of hard to answer for everyone.
I also think that you should only consider taking 140's courses if you are interested in that subject, because the last thing you kind of want is to take a really hard course on something you're not interested in. So
For sure, yeah.
if you really like math, go ahead, like do it. If you really like math and you discover that maybe 140 moves a little too fast for you, you can always drop down to a 130s course. So I would say if you are interested in it, try it out.
Yeah, for sure. Our next question is, do you recommend us buying textbooks, or is there somewhere we can find them online?
There is always a way to get textbooks for free.
Very true. The other thing to note is, in many cases, your profs will actually give it to you for free. So yeah, I would say hold off on buying your textbooks, especially in the first week. Most CS courses, from my experience anyways, is they give you a digital version of the textbook anyways, or you can get them through the course reserves in the library. And now that things are online, I have found most of them are available online through the library. So like, my opinion, don't buy them.
Although I do have to say, for most humanities courses, you generally have to buy the textbooks because those ones are a little harder to obtain through other means.
For sure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was mostly referring to CS textbooks. Textbooks. We don't really have textbooks, but yeah. Or we do, but they're fairly limited. Our next question is, for co-ops, can we find them ourselves or do we need to find them through Waterloo Works?
You can find them yourself too.
Yeah, you can.
I would say though that the schedule is a little different. In Waterloo Works, it's a very strict, like, on this week you apply, on this week you're interviewing, on that week you're ranking, and then the next week, if you didn't get a job, you apply again. Like, the scheduling is different. Like, for instance, most summer jobs, like positions, applications will open in the fall or earlier. So if you are interested in applying outside of Waterloo Works, I would say get on the train early.
Yeah, I've noticed, I've already seen a lot of postings for next summer already be open now. So if that's something you're interested in, like now is already a good time to start looking externally.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, things are definitely moving fast. You'll have PD1 in is it your second term? Yeah, right before your first co-op, or I guess whenever your first co-op is, and not everyone's in the same streams, but right before your first co-op, you'll have PD1, which kind of preps you for your first co-op term, and you'll be provided a bunch of info, kind of like what the process looks like. But yeah, they recently changed Waterloo Works, and you can now apply outside at the same time. Our next question is, I just switched tabs by accident. What are some tips for keeping up with CS 135?
Do your assignments.
Do them early.
Yeah. Also I remember in CS 135, they make you do these like stepper problems. I don't think that they're like count for mark, they're just practice, but I would say do them because they're worth a lot of marks on your exams. And I know a lot of people who lost a lot of marks on those. And they're not that hard to do as long as you practice them.
Yeah, for sure. In your opinion, does 140 courses have an advantage in applying for first year co-ops?
No, I don't think they do. Yeah, your jobs will generally not look at your courses.
Here's a question, since we were just talking about co-op rankings, what are co-op rankings? It might be helpful to kind of talk about that.
Okay, so co-op rankings are essentially after you get an interview with a job, you are asked, the company is asked to rank you. So I think how it works is the company will rank you like on a scale from 1 to 10, or they'll say they're not interested in you. And then during the rankings period, you will receive either not ranked, which means the company's not interested, ranked, which means they gave you a score from 2 to 10, or offer, which means they gave you a score of 1 and they're kind of just offering you the job. Um, and you get to rank your company on a scale from 1 to 10 if you got ranked or if you got an offer. And then the Waterloo system will just figure it out. they'll match you with a particular company. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically matches you with the smallest with the smallest number, but beyond that, we don't know how it actually does the matching. That's like a secret. You could consider it like a secret sauce of of Waterloo Works, if you want to call it that. When and how will you be able to join clubs at Waterloo?
I can answer this one. So this term WUSA, which is like the Student Association of Undergrads at Waterloo, they have an Instagram account which is pretty active for their clubs, and they do like club takeovers. So you can look it up pretty easily, I think, and you can see a bunch of different clubs at Waterloo and what they do. And there's also like a Facebook group called like WUSA Clubs and Societies, I think. And they're planning to have like all the clubs post information about their clubs and how to join um in two 2 weeks, 1 week from now. I don't
Yeah, it
know,
should be
sometime soon.
fairly
Yeah.
soon.
So you can like keep up with that to learn more information about different clubs and how to join.
For sure. Another quick question that I'll answer. Will we be receiving a recording of this event? And the answer is yes. We are recording this event, so it will be available after. It might take a couple days for us to get it uploaded and transcribed, but it will be going up onto the U Waterloo YouTube website or YouTube channel. Unrelated to CS, but with asynchronous recorded lectures and everything being online, do you have any advice for socializing? I can take this if you guys don't have any thoughts. My first suggestion is we have Waterloo ready for kind of this purpose. Is all of you are coming in at the same kind of stage in life. You're all coming to Waterloo for the first time, or you're attending Waterloo. So reach out to your Waterloo ready teams. It's a great opportunity to meet people to begin with. Since there's only about 2 weeks left, or a week and a half at this point, I guess, of Waterloo Ready. Try to break off into group chats on whatever platforms you want, Discord, Facebook, Messenger, stuff like that, and you can really hang out through that. And then clubs is my other way of socializing or getting involved on campus. Become a math ambassador, which is a bit of an advertisement, but apply to do activities online, apply to do orientation next year, kind of find all these activities to get involved with, because that's how I do a lot of my socializing, both while everything's online, while also in person, is they hold these socialization events typically. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
That was good.
Do grades play a role in getting internships, in your opinion?
Grades are, it's kind of job dependent, but I would say for the most part, your grades will not play a role. Um, unless unless you like failed a lot of courses, maybe then a lot more jobs would care. But like for the most part, your grades will not matter. Some jobs will care, but those are typically ones who are looking for like the kind of cream of the crop of your class. So some jobs will be like you have to have an 80 or above average to be considered, or a 90 above average, or something like that. Um, but most like regular jobs will not care.
For sure. What is the difference between a TST lecture, so a test lecture, and a tutorial component for our courses? So I think they're referring to like the Quest components that they see in their schedule. I can take this one if you guys don't have an answer.
I don't even remember what they are.
So, okay, so a test lecture. So what that is actually referring to is usually your midterm date. So typically when you sign up to a course, you have your normal lecture section, which is like a 101 number usually, or like 102, or maybe it's 001. I can't remember which one specifically. Then you have the tutorial components, which I think are then the 100 numbered components. And those are like tutorials where you go to your TA. Typically it's a TA running it or an ISA running it. And you're kind of like they're giving you kind of a recap of lectures, answering your questions, going through working through problems, stuff like that. And then the test lecture, at least for all of my courses that I've taken, are referring to, because they're usually like a specific date on them. I'm not sure if that's still the case while everything's online, but it's referring to kind of like the date and time that you're going to be writing a midterm on. If I'm remembering correctly, hopefully. The next question is, what are course notes and should we get physical copies?
So course notes are like pseudo textbooks almost. Like they're not like real, they're like textbooks, but specifically for the one course that you're taking. Should you get them depends on whether or not you actually want a physical book. Because I know some people just like studying with like a physical book, but typically your prof will post your course notes online.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have any tips on how to plan our degree? It's a pretty general question, but I don't know if either of you want to take a stab at it.
I think the thing that probably requires the most planning is your depth requirement, which is when you have to take 3 courses that are in the same subject that is not math or CS, and it has to like form a prerequisite tree, or at least one of them has to be in 3rd year. So I would say maybe think about which subject you want to choose for that, because I know some people who waited a bit too late to start thinking about it, and they're like scrambling now to fulfill that requirement. Yeah.
For sure. Our next question, just lost it. From your personal experience, were you able to participate in hackathons and doing side projects along with your studies?
Yes.
Yes, I found it's pretty easy to, especially for like hackathons. They're like 24 to 48 hours. So you kind of just like give up that little chunk of time in your plan and your schedule and go do them. Although there might be a couple days of recouping from not sleeping.
Some people do also do assignments during hackathons, although
True.
I would say if you're very serious about your hackathon project, maybe you shouldn't do that. You could.
Yeah, that is very true. For some people who are sending some questions about international students and visas, I just want to quickly let you know you should reach out to the Waterloo has some emails that you can email to. You should be able to just Google for international students Waterloo, and you should get to the page with kind of that info. We can't answer any of those questions because there's quite a few of them. Just so that you know, you can reach out to one of the advisors. If you can't find the email, the easiest is email to the math undergraduate office, so mathuo at uwaterloo.ca. They'll be able to answer questions, or if they can't, they'll redirect you to who can. And that's the best way of getting those answers to your questions, because we can't do them. Which terms do you normally find the hardest? How hard relatively is our first term, i.e. the 1A term?
I think your 1A term is kind of the easiest term in terms of the required courses that you have to take, which kind of makes sense. You know, you're in first year, you're not expected to have your hardest term in your first year. I would say like it gets harder as the years go on. I don't know if there's a specific hardest term.
Mm-hmm.
I thought my 2A term was kind of hard because I had to take CS 246, which is, in my opinion, the simultaneously the hardest and most useful course in computer science. Yeah, that I guess that's my answer.
For sure. Let's see. What do you do if a technical error, like connection suddenly cutting out during a test, happens during an exam? Is it an instant game over, or do we get a strike or something else? I can take that if you guys don't know. Typically, the easiest thing to do is get in contact with your professor. Don't go radio silent or anything. Immediately reach out to your professor, and then it's a case-by-case basis to talk it through with them. There is no one answer fits all. It's always going to be a case-by-case, and it's a discussion that you have to have with your professor. And it will always be situational. Let me scroll down to the bottom to some of our newer questions that we've just got coming in. Oh boy, it's coming in fast. Let me just parse through a couple of questions. If you guys see anyone that sees any that pop out, feel free to grab them. Here's one that is a possible one that we could take. Do you recommend that I take a super easy courses for my electives to get better grades in my main courses, or do you think that is unnecessary? And this is very much opinion based.
I personally feel like you can do that, but I feel like you should still only take those easy courses if you're interested in it. Because if you're not interested in it, it won't be that easy, I feel like. Like from what I found personally, like I've taken some easy courses that my friends told me were easy, but I personally found it really boring and I struggled a lot with those courses and it was very painful to get through it. That's my opinion on that.
I had the exact same experience with a course that everyone told me was the easiest course ever, and it ended up being my worst grade that semester.
Yeah. So there's some questions about kind of like testing and exams since everything is online. I'll quickly just address that. And I'm going to say it is still kind of all being determined, and it's the same kind of answer to the previous questions is it's a course by course determination. So you'll be seeing all of that stuff in the coming days. I'm just going to dismiss some of these so that I can see some other questions.
So there's one question that asks, what sort of side projects do software companies consider good? And in my opinion, the best side project for a specific company or for a specific role is one that is the most related to that role. So if your goal is to become a game developer, you want your side projects to be games. That's what they would consider as the best side project. If you want to get into ML, I would do an ML-based project. Or if you want to do like, if there's a front-end web development role, just make a really pretty website. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, for sure. I just saw one that I just scrolled by, but it's basically, are there support resources for like resume critiques and mock interviews and whatnot on campus?
Yes.
I don't know if you guys know the answer to that. Yes, the short answer is yes. There are quite a few actually. So MassSoc offers some of them here in our own faculty. So they offer resume critiques and I believe also mock interviews. But then we also have the CEE, I think that's their new name, which is they're the co-op experimental education, I believe is what that stands for, or something along those lines. They're basically the co-op office. So they're the ones that we go through for co-ops. And they also run a bunch of workshops, resume critiques, and all that. I don't know specifically how they're going to run in the online format, but I can't imagine they won't be. So they will have something, and all that detail will be coming in the hopefully near future.
There's a question here that says, is it possible to take biology as a minor while in CS, and are there prerequisites to do it? The answer to that simply is yeah, you can totally do a biology minor as a CS student. One of my friends is actually a biology minor with a is taking a biology minor for her CS degree. Typically, how minors work is you have to take like 8 to 10 courses, which is completely feasible to do within the bounds of like your 4 years at Waterloo, or 5 years if you're in co-op. And it's typically like, oh, you have to have X amount of second or third year courses, and like maybe one or two like courses that you have to take. But yeah, it's totally possible.
Awesome. Here's an interesting one. And how do you make proper use of the reading week?
Do nothing for every day except for the last weekend, and finish all your homework. No, don't. I don't know.
I mean, it's gonna be up to you, really. Like for me, I typically use it as like a recharge period. It's kind of like my break-ish kind of. So like my first half of my reading break is doing nothing, not doing any schoolwork, and just taking it as a time to recoup. I don't know if you guys have done something similar, but yeah, and then after that, kind of like halfway through, the second half would be kind of now catching up on readings, catching up on assignments, getting through things before everything kind of jumpstarts. Also, reading week falls right around midterm season, and so it's kind of like the perfect study period to kind of more relaxedly study while not having like assignments due at the exact same time, I find.
If you do really, really need to finish like a certain amount of work for reading week, it helps to plan out every single day of the week so that like typically what happens if you don't have a plan is that you don't do anything because you don't really know where to start, and you don't really know when you should start, and you just end up wasting a lot of time. So if you really do need to complete work during reading week, I would say schedule the work into your week. Like on Monday, I'm going to do this. On Tuesday, I'm going to do this. On Wednesday, I'm going to try to finish this. Yeah, just do something like that.
Yeah, I think it's still important though to take like a mental break as well, and not like allocate time to relax so that you don't feel guilty while you relax that you're not doing assignments. Because I've definitely spent reading weeks feeling guilty and also simultaneously doing nothing, which is probably the worst way to spend a reading week.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. Are upper year students allowed to take 100 level courses, such as a language course like China 101R?
Yes.
Yeah, there are no actual there's no specific restrictions on like the level of course, as long as you meet all the prerequisites for a course. So sometimes some courses will be locked to specific students. Now, sometimes you can go directly to an advisor to see if you can get into the course still, but typically you can take courses as long as you meet those prerequisites.
Sometimes courses also have like a, you have to be at least in third year, or you have to be at least in X year to take it. But there's no like, you cannot take it after this year. Like that doesn't exist.
Could you please explain what the breadth and depth requirements mean /are?
Yeah, so breadth requirements is like there's a list of, I don't remember the list off the top of my head, but basically it's like you have to take one or two courses in a bunch of different subject areas, and the point of that is because they want you to have more experience, like to try out different things within the university. So it's like you have to take like some science courses, some humanities courses, things like that. And then depth requirement is you have to take 3 courses within the same subject that form the prerequisite chain, or at least one of them is in 3rd year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so for some who don't know, is you'll want to check out the your, I think it's called the class schedule, or can't remember what it's specifically called, but it's basically what outlines all your requirements, and it's kind of it gives you a list and kind of a description of all those, and you can find those on the Math CS website, and it changes from year to year, so make sure to find your years. What are your favorite courses that you've taken?
I really liked SPCOM 223, public speaking. Although I would say that course is prof dependent. So if you have Jeff Stacy, it's gonna be a fun time. I like that course because it was probably the only course that I took that made it easy to socialize and make friends. Whereas like most courses, you just kind of sit somewhere and listen to the prof talk. In that course, you're given the chance to have sort of nice discussions and do presentations and things like that, which I thought was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Margaret, do you got a favorite?
I think I have 2 favorites, if that's okay.
Yeah,
One of
sure.
them is Popular Potter. It's like the Harry Potter English course. I thought that was really fun because like I really like Harry Potter. Everybody else in the class has read the books like a million times, and it was just really fun to like analyze it in a different way, and like think about it more critically and criticize it. Yeah, I thought that was a really fun course to take. And my other favorite course is um, Com 400, which is tech tech. I don't remember the name of the course, but it's like about entrepreneurship and technology. And basically, in the course, there aren't like any real lectures. It's just like every week, the prof gets some tech CEO to come in and talk to us about their startup journey and how they got into it. And that was a really cool experience to like hear about how all these people started tech companies, and some of them went to Waterloo as well. Yeah, it was really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. Um, I find it funny though that we didn't name a single CS course.
CS courses, I don't know. I would like HISP 115, Crusading in the Middle Ages. You'll probably like that.
But yes, no, CS courses are great, but yeah, there are some really great other courses and other departments to take. So yeah, definitely explore around to find those courses. If the that is a question we can't answer. If we end up reaching Waterloo after the winter term, how would applying for co-ops work? Also, I'll just quickly take a stab at this one, and I'm going to say the simplest answer is it's not solidified. Like nothing is set in stone yet. Like for example, right now co-ops, the co-op process, for example, for students who are applying this fall term, is everything is being conducted online. So interviews are online. You apply through Waterloo Works still, which is also online. So it's just all now moved to an online format. And so your co-op applying will kind of change, but it might be similar formatting as this fall if things are still kind of in the state that we're currently in this world, if you want to call it that. Since the classes are online, will I be able to attend them at any time of the day? I'm going to just repeat the same answer. It depends on the courses again. It's going to depend on the prof. And you'll kind of have to figure out how it fits in your schedule. If it's like recorded lectures, then yeah, totally you can choose when and how you want to watch it.
So this person asks, what is the general education plan of CS student after completing their undergraduate education? Is it to continue with doing their master's or start working with a company? Being an international student, this perplexes me. I think generally most people in CS will just work for a company after they graduate. The co-op program makes it very easy to do that because what a lot of people will do is at their last co-op or one of their last co-ops, the co-op will just offer them a full-time job afterwards, and they'll just say, all right, sure, and that's kind of the start of their career. But you do have the choice of doing a master's or a PhD if you would like to. Those are typically a little more rare because they don't make money, if you know what I mean. But you can totally do that as well if you're interested, if you are very interested in a particular subject within CS and want to do research on it. So it's kind of the world's kind of your oyster after you graduate, but most people will just work at a job.
How and this is more of just a technical question. How and when will we get the course outlines? Those always get released the first day of classes, so September 8th for this fall. And I'll give you the full details of what your course is going to look like. And how like your marks are broken down, when assignments are due. Everything will be shown in your syllabus right at the start of the term. Do you have any tips for finding your first co-op job?
I would say maybe like as a first step, get a good resume and get it reviewed a lot. I know when I was in first year, I was kind of scared to get it reviewed because I knew it wasn't good and I knew people would like tear it apart. But honestly, it's better that other people tear it apart than to get rejection when you're applying with a bad resume. I think that's a good start.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, and then I would also say do those mock interviews if you've never interviewed before, just to get a kind of practice in it. Having your first interview being a real interview is a little daunting. You've never done it before, so yeah, take advantage of all the resources that Waterloo tries to give you.
I'll also add, don't be discouraged if you don't get a job right away. Waterloo Works goes on and on and on and on and on up until the start of the next semester. When I was in first year, I did not get a job until like after exams. But I eventually got one. So yeah.
For sure. Okay, so we've only got about 2 minutes left, so we're gonna try to blitz through some of these. How does housing work if co-op isn't near campus?
You just kind of find one yourself, typically.
Pretty much, yeah. The other thing too is if you have like a lot of the times you sublet, and there's a lot of like websites to help you with that. So typically you just kind of try to find a place if you're looking for a place for your co-op. If you already have a housing in Waterloo that you need to then like sublet, there are a lot of places like on Facebook to sublet your place out to other people.
If you're gonna be working in like kind of a big city, generally there's like a Facebook group for sublets in that city. And even better, if that city has a university, then you go to that university's sublet group, and there'll typically be students who are subletting for a semester, which is really nice.
We will make this our last question. What are your opinions on the 4 different co-op sequences? Does it matter which one you're in? I'll say my opinion is no, it doesn't matter. Because for those who don't know, the 4 co-op sequences is it just means when you're taking your courses or taking your co-op terms. And for me, I did sequence 1 and I found it worked well. I knew people in sequence 2 and they succeeded just as well. I knew people in 3 and 4 and they've all succeeded. So I ultimately don't think it matters. And if you have the opportunity in the future to kind of move co-ops around depending on like what your situation is, and you can work co-ops to do that. So the streams aren't hard set, but they are kind of like the recommended flow and kind of like the directed flow that the co-op office tries to encourage. With that, we are kind of at the end of our time. Obviously, we didn't get to all of your questions, but that means the best place to take them is directly to your ping captain in Microsoft Teams. So all those questions that we saw are fantastic questions to send off to them. They are more than happy to answer them. Actually, they really want to see your questions. Some of your channels might look a little quiet, but they very much want to see them. They're excited to see any questions. So please send them your questions if you have any. They'll be around until September 14th, until the end of Waterloo Ready / Math Orientation. Just some things for Math Orientation. Check us out on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, although our Twitter is pretty quiet these days. Use the hashtag UWO20, Waterloo Orientation 20. We want to, just thank you for coming out to the event. You can email us out at mathorientation@uwaterloo.ca. We'll answer your questions if you have any that we can. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. The recordings will be available hopefully in a couple of days if you want to come back to review them, and have a great day.